Hey y'all, today we are making some oven baked ribs. So you're going to need some ribs, of course, and then don't drop them like I did. But I got this, it's a 2-pack at Sam's for, I don't know y'all, it was pretty cheap, like $15 or $16 for 2 racks of ribs. I don't know, I don't cook ribs all the time, but it felt like a good price to me. So what you're going to do is go ahead, get your ribs cleaned up. Y'all know I rinse my ribs off. I say wash, y'all, but I'm not over there with Dawn dishwashing liquid scrubbing my meat. I just rinse it off, get the little pieces of bone and things like that tend to be on meat a lot of times. I have to get them off. I can't help it. But I know it's a bone of contention for some of y'all. So however you do your ribs, that's how you do it. And that's right. It's correct however you do it. Okay. So this rack of ribs is the bigger one, and it had like this extra foot of just meat, no bone or anything. And so I only have one cookie sheet that these were going to fit on, and that was still too big. So I just cut the little piece of meat off, but I didn't throw it away. I'm just going to put it over to the side, and I'll put it in some beans or something. So I already took the membrane off of that first rack of ribs, but then I thought maybe I'll show y'all how I did it in case somebody isn't sure. Okay, we want to get this membrane off because we don't want this to be tough and chewy and yuck when we start eating our ribs. Okay, we just want fall off the bone tender rib meat. We don't want this membrane. So take you a butter knife, find one of the rib bones, and I went about halfway somewhere around in there, don't have to be perfect. Run that knife under the membrane right down that rib bone. Okay, and do it on the bone so you don't end up cutting your meat. But look at that. It peels. Stick your finger in that little hole you made and then just peel that membrane right on off. You don't need a paper towel to grab it with, nor nothing, okay? Just roll that little membrane right on off. And that's it, y'all. That's how you take the membrane off some ribs without having to fight with it. Okay, so because I did rinse my ribs off a little bit, and I'm going to be adding some oil and some rub to these ribs, so I went ahead, took me a little paper towel, and just patted any of the excess liquid off of my ribs, okay? Now, you don't have to do the oil if you don't want to, but I feel like it helps the rub stick better, so I'm going to do it. So go ahead and get your oven preheating to 300. I know I didn't tell y'all. And by the way, y'all, we're doing a Q&A coming up pretty soon. So any questions y'all have about me, the channel, life in general, drop them down in the comment section. So, all right, now we're going to put a little bit of olive oil on these ribs. Now, if anybody is wondering why I'm cooking ribs in the oven and why I'm just not cooking it out there on the grill, well, there's a few reasons. One is I'm not real comfortable with the grill yet. I haven't done a whole lot of grill cooking, and it's 187,000 degrees out there, and my fluffy behind ain't trying to stand over no hot grill. So there's my reasoning. But also, these are really good, y'all. All right, so here's our rub. Now, when I decided I was going to make these ribs, my son-in-law said, make sure you got a good rub, and I was like, I don't have any rib rub. So I scoured the internet trying to find me a recipe, and I couldn't find one I liked. So I took a little bit from a whole bunch of different places and I made my own. So this is what I'm putting in here. I got 3/4 cup of brown sugar. We got 2 tablespoons of onion powder. We're going to add in 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. Then we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of Tony's, or whatever your favorite Cajun or Creole seasoning is. 2 tablespoons of it. Then we're going to go to teaspoons, okay? We're moving to the teaspoon now. I'm going to have 3 teaspoons of black pepper. Then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. And this makes a lot, y'all. So if you are thinking, my gosh, that's a whole lot of whatever, it is, because it makes a whole lot. Then we're going to take 5 teaspoons of paprika. Now, you're going to see me put 4 in because that's what I started with, but I did go back and add another teaspoon of that. Then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Cumin, what do y'all call it? Then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. Now, I am a wimp when it comes to spicy and heat, okay? I like a little bit of heat, but I can't handle too much because I'm old. Anyway, we ain't gonna talk about my acid reflux on this channel. But if you like a little bit of heat, you can certainly add some cayenne pepper to this and give it a little bit more of a kick. Okay, so what we're gonna do, like I said, is we're just gonna take our rib rub and we're just gonna pat it down into our meat because we want to make sure that it sticks, and if you just throw it on there, when you flip it over, all your stuff's gonna fall off. And again, that's the reason that I'm using a little bit of olive oil. I didn't use a whole lot, but just enough to kind of make my rub stick a little bit better. Okay, and then you're gonna flip it over and you're gonna do the same exact thing on the other side. Now don't worry, I have a clean hand and I have a dirty hand. I know I've got it sped up, but I'm putting stuff from my clean hand into my dirty hand when I'm doing the sides and stuff. So don't worry about that. We're not putting any salmonella on the counter. Did you get salmonella from ribs or just chicken? I don't know. But anyway, I'm washing my hands, y'all, and I'm keeping hands clean. So once you get your ribs all good and coated, you're going to take some aluminum foil, and mine was long enough but not wide enough, so you'll see what I do in a minute. Just make sure that you have enough on the ends that you're going to be able to fold it over, because we're going to seal these up. And what I was doing right there, the patting was on the edges of my ribs. I was just going ahead and getting up any of that loose rub that fell between the ribs when I was putting it on. So like I said, you're just going to pick your ribs up, put them right down in the middle of your foil. And then because I didn't have, like my foil wasn't wide enough, I went ahead and tore some little strips of foil to put right over the top of the ribs. And that way it was still all sealed up when we cooked it, okay? And I know I'm going to tear a hole in the end of this in just a second. Y'all are going to see that, but don't worry. I fix it. I clean my counter. All the things, okay? So we're going to put these right onto a cookie sheet, and I really need some bigger cookie sheets because this is the biggest cookie sheet that I have that I'm going to use here in just a minute, and it barely fit these ribs. So y'all remind me that the next time I go to Ross or, you know, one of them stores, because you know I'm cheap, then I need a big cookie sheet. Okay, y'all put that on the list. Remind me. So we're going to put these on our barely big enough cookie sheet. And then we're going to put them in the oven, 300 degrees, for about 2 to 3 hours. You want your ribs to have an internal temperature of about 190 to 200 degrees, okay? And I know that because that's what my son-in-law told me, and he is the rib master in our family. So once they come out of the oven, you're going to go ahead and you're going to take the foil off, because we're going to have to get these out because we want to put a little barbecue sauce on them, right? But again, this is the only cookie sheet that I have that's big enough to hold these ribs, so I had to do a little finagling back and forth. So I got my crusty little pizza pan there, and you're just going to pick up your ribs and move them right on out of the way if you need to do this like I did. Well, even if you don't need to transfer pans, y'all, you got to get the foil off these. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to unwrap these and give y'all just maybe a little bit better of a look of what they're going to look like. See there? When they come out of the oven that first time. And at this point, I was thinking, I must have did something wrong because these just look a little wet to me. Like, I don't know why in my brain I was expecting these to come out crispy right now. They certainly were not, because they steamed in some darn aluminum foil. But anyway, so that was oil and juice on that pan. Now, because I'm fixing to crank my oven up to a high broil for the next step, I didn't want any oil left on that pan, or as much as I could get off of it, I wanted to get it off because I didn't want to set the kitchen on fire. So you're going to go ahead and transfer your ribs back to your cookie sheet. Now, I had to use 2 spatulas for this because the ribs were falling apart. And there comes my son-in-law just to make sure that bigger rack of ribs was the right temperature, because it was quite a bit bigger than my other one. So he checked that out for me and made sure we were good to go, y'all. So then what you're going to do is go ahead and add your barbecue sauce. Now, I'm using Sweet Baby Ray's. You can use whatever kind you like. And you're going to put you a good little coating of the barbecue sauce and just brush it all over there until you get it nice and coated. And I only did this one side with the barbecue sauce. But you're going to put these back in the oven on a high broil until that barbecue sauce caramelizes on top of your ribs, okay? It's just going to take a few minutes till it gets nice and sticky. But y'all, and somebody please tell me why I didn't turn this pan around to cut this rib, because then I ran into a bone. Look at that. And I can't get through the bone, y'all. Mercy me. But anyway, I wanted to show y'all that when you flip this up right here, like the bones are just falling out of these ribs. So if you think that you can't cook them in the oven because they're not going to be tender, think again. If you cook them like I did, they are so tender and juicy, and these had the best flavor, y'all. They were so good, and they went real quick. But that is all that I've got for y'all today. I will pop y'all another video over here, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.